Welcome to episode 27 of The Player and the Journalist with Carson Harris and David Vick. In this episode, we will discuss off-season transfers. That might be the shortest intro we've ever had on The Player and the Journalist, but that's how it is, okay? And before we get started, well, obviously Carson and I have a lot to say. We hope you find it interesting as usual. I have 3 announcements. 1, please leave us a review on Spotify or Apple if you enjoy the podcast. We love seeing the reviews. They make us feel good. And, you know, Carson and I need to feel good about stuff. So please leave a review if you enjoy the show. Second,
only if you enjoy the show. Important
yes, only.
note.
If you don't enjoy the show, don't leave us a review. We don't want to see it. Second announcement, Lacrosse Extras is now on TikTok, which you can find us at lacrosse_extras. And also Carson Harris is on TikTok. She has been for quite some time. And you might want to go through her catalog of posts because they are rather entertaining. I went through them yesterday for the first time. And
that was a COVID thing.
And third announcement will be our week of giving. Our first ever Lacrosse Extras week of giving will be October 1st through the 7th. You heard it here first on the podcast. If you listen to the podcast, you deserve to get news first. So there you go. A few announcements. Also on TikTok, we're posting some of our most popular videos that we posted. Some, a little time machine, kind of post, going on. Going back to the past, some really good stuff. You might even see a post of Carson Harris on there. You never know.
Oh, God. I haven't seen one of those in a while.
Awesome. So we have a few topics today for our transfers. And our first one will be, who will be the most impactful of the 2023 offseason transfers? Carson and I each have 2 players, and Carson will kick us off. Let's see who she has. I do not know either, so I might have to hate on her a little bit. We'll see what she has.
I'm sure. I was picking these. I said, I'm going to put all this work into it, and David's just going to tear them apart. I know he is as soon as I get on the screen. So anyway, I'm sure you will. But my first one is the Boston. Honestly, I kind of cheated here and put like the Boston College transfers as a whole as my most impactful, just because I think like they were a really quality team, a really consistent team last year, but they were missing like a goal scorer, in my opinion. They had people who could do like very impressive things with the ball, but there wasn't anybody that could finish like they had in Charlotte North. I think they were kind of missing that last year, and to round out their team. And they picked up Emma Pinto and Rachel Clark, who are both just people I think that can get to goal. Rachel Clark especially is like one of those players that's just gritty, and when she decides that she wants to go, she can go. Like she just finds the openings. And so I think they're style players, but they also have like I said, a lot of grit behind them that I think BC was kind of missing last year, in that like gung-ho, get to goal kind of style of play. So I think both of those pickups will be really important for Boston College moving forward. And with those terms, I mean, they picked up a lot of good people. Like I think they could be really good. If the only problem is them figuring out how to play as a unit, because Emma LaPinto, Rachel Clark are both used to being the like it girls. So if they can figure out and play as a unit and play as a team with now all these other girls who are also used to being it girls, and they can merge together and play as a unit, I think they could be a really impressive team this year. I'm excited for that.
Who do you think is more important for Boston College, Rachel Clark or Emma LaPinto?
I think that, I don't know. I think personally Rachel Clark to start. I think Emma LaPinto, only because I think Emma LaPinto will have a harder time playing that like team ball style of play versus like Rachel Clark, who went to Virginia. Like they're always been a pretty clean curve. I could be totally off on that mark, but I think Rachel Clark could be more impactful, at least in the beginning of the season.
Okay, awesome. So I agree with you on Rachel Clark. She was my number 1 as well.
Oh, cool. Look at us.
So yes, I think also I looked up BC's roster, and she is slated to be wearing number 1. So that'll be interesting.
Wow.
So yeah, number 1, Rachel Clark. Welcome to the show. Okay, let's see. I think it will take some time, just a random thought. I think it will take some time to get used to seeing Rachel Clark in the maroon and gold, just from her coming over from Virginia. So that'll take some time to get used to.
No, I agree. So
yeah,
those were interesting to me. I was surprised by both of those. I'm surprised Emma Pinto left Florida, actually. I was very surprised by that.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a tough offseason for Florida. They did get some transfers, but replacing Emma Pinto is going to be a little difficult. So, but yeah, so sticking with Rachel Clark, I think So BC, the past few seasons, they've been getting good transfers after good transfers. Like they just get really good transfers, and it seems like whenever they get one of these transfers, the player's game gets elevated automatically just from being in the BC system, the BC culture, learning from Acacia
Mhm.
Walker-Weinstein. Their game just seems to elevate. So I think we will see that with Rachel Clark. I mean, her game is already really good, obviously, but I think she might become the number one option on their offense.
Yeah,
I
I
think,
would be surprised.
yeah, I mean, she's legit. She is amazing. I love Rachel Clark. And also now she'll get to learn from, like I said, Acacia Walker-Weinstein and Sam Puzo, who's one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player to ever go through Boston College, might be the best player in the world right now. And so I think Rachel Clark, she's going to be in for a big year. And I just want to give a little glimpse into what BC started. Martello, who's very good. They have McKenna Davis, who's very good. Add in Rachel Clark, add in Imola Pinto. That could be a scary. Obviously, they don't have Jen Medjid anymore, but that could be a scary starting attack right there.
Yeah, I was also just thinking because like, isn't Rachel Clark pretty tall? She's a
Yeah,
tall, strong girl, right?
Yeah, she's 5. I want to say 5'9".
Yeah, I feel like her, and she doesn't cut normally. I feel like she's normally a driver, but I think her and Belle Smith, the combination of those two cutting off ball from each other, could be really dangerous. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
Belle Smith's a great feeder. Like she is a good like scorer too, but she's a really amazing assister. So I feel like that could be a spark.
just when you thought BC might fall off, here they come, reloading again. BC they just always seem to reload in the off season. It's amazing.
I know. Well, Acacia Walker is like an amazing coach. I think she's got a lot going for her.
For sure.
To get
Okay, so
there.
we each pretty much agree on our first player. So we have 2 players to go. Who is your next one? I'm hoping we don't have the same person.
I don't think we will. Mine's kind of off kilter.
Mine is too.
Oh no. It's I can't even pronounce her last name actually, but I have Molly Krestinski, and she's going from Colgate to Vanderbilt. And the reason I have this is because I just want Vanderbilt to succeed in life all the time. I'm always cheering for them. I'm not sure why. And I was looking at it, and she's coming from Colgate. She was a goal scorer for them. She was like 3rd, I think, on their team, maybe 4th in their team in goals. She put up 18, which isn't like a groundbreaking number, but Vanderbilt only scored 143 goals last year, which averaged like under 9 a game.
That's not good.
That's not gonna win. They're right. Like that's just not gonna win you games. So I feel like maybe with a different team around her, like she was clearly gaining momentum at Colgate. So I feel like the switch to them where they're in need of a goal scorer, like they're in need of somebody to step up and score, that she could kind of flourish there in the way that like they need. Because like typically when you get put in, like I wasn't a goal scorer when I got to Drexel, but like we needed someone to score goals, so that's what I did. Like, so I'm just thinking that maybe she has the potential clearly, like she showed at Colgate. So I just think like when she gets to Vanderbilt and that's the need, that she could be an impact player for them. So a little bit off, but I think she could be interesting to keep an eye on.
Hey, I like it. It's good to be different. And also, obviously, Colgate doesn't have the best culture in the sport right now, so going to Vanderbilt might help her out in that regard. And Vanderbilt, I also love Vanderbilt. Me and Karson agree again. I'm a huge fan of Vanderbilt. I love Paige Gunning in goal. She is so fun to watch. And Vanderbilt, I think, I mean, you can't really get much lower than 8.5 or whatever you said goals per game.
It was like 8.
Yeah. So
hopefully they also picked up a defender. They also picked up a defender and Elise Bielecki, I think. From Pitt. So yeah, from Pitt. So I think that could be a good combination of people together, like pick up a person who can score and a person who can play defense. Like that might be a good spark on both sides of the ball. That was my other note about that. Sorry. Cut you off.
And Vanderbilt, I mean, they had a down year last year, but before that, they were on the rise for a few years. And so I feel like I was definitely a little disappointed in them last year. So and they have Paige Gunning coming back for her 5th year. I think, and their coaching staff is all the same pretty much. I think maybe Vanderbilt can bounce back. Who knows? They got to clean up some turnover issues, but we'll see.
I hope so. That could have been more of a wishful thinking, like a hopeful one that I put on there, but I'm rooting for them. I hope it's a good momentum turn for them.
Hey, we will see. We will see. So my second player, It's coming from the University of Oregon. Or is it Oregon University? I don't know. She's coming from Oregon, and she is going to Ohio State. Do you know who I'm talking about? First name Gabby, last name Cleveland. Okay, so Gabby
No,
Cleveland.
I don't.
So I did struggle with this one a little bit. It wasn't as easy as Rachel Clark. Obviously, that was probably like the easy. I mean, I didn't say Rachel Clark and Emma LaPinto. Okay, but Gabby Cleveland, I think. So she's played at Oregon for 2 seasons. She's going to be a junior at Ohio State. I've watched her a good bit, and she's so intense. She shows her emotions, which I love. She gets very fired up, and I think the reason I did not pick her for her stats. I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure she started every game last year at Oregon, and she's a really good midi, goes both ways. And so she's going to put up good numbers, I'm sure. But the reason I picked her is because of Ohio State's new coaching staff. Okay.
Oh.
They have Amanda Moore, who came over from ECU after being there for a while and building that program up. She brought over one of her assistants, Tiana Walfer. They hired Allie Kennedy as an assistant from UVA.
Oh.
And so Ohio State, they have a whole new coaching staff. And when you're a new coaching staff, the first thing you're going to try and do is implement your culture, whatever that may be. And so I believe that just because of Gabby Cleveland's intensity, that she's going to bring the practice, that she's going to bring the games, it's going to make players in that program maybe a little uncomfortable at the beginning, but it's going to force them to show some more emotion. I think when you have someone on your team that shows that much emotion, it rubs off on the rest of the team. And I think that's a great thing personally. So with Amanda Moore coming over, very successful at ECU, Ohio State, one winning season in the last 3 years. She's going to want to establish her culture, like I said. And what better way to do that than by bringing in a player who also has not been in that program? She hasn't been in the program. She's not used to losing. I mean, obviously Oregon hasn't been great.
Maybe.
But I believe by bringing in a player that hasn't been a part of the program, you have a new coach and you have a player who I believe will start for them. And if not, definitely come off the second midfield line. And I believe that's going to be a very good combination for a new coaching staff that's trying to make a change at Ohio State, that's trying to change how things go, that's trying to build a winning culture. I think this will be a very big get for Ohio State. And I think I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it plays out.
Yeah, I agree. I have 2 points on that. I feel like the first one is I'm wondering if that says something about this girl's coaching style, like because she's bringing in somebody that intense. Like it could be something that she's trying to instill in everybody, which would be kind of a cool. I'm sure it would be a hard transition for people who are in Ohio State already, but that's kind of a cool way to do it. My second thing, kind of going off of that, is that I like the idea of it, but if she makes her like the girl to do the culture, I don't know if it will work. You know what I mean? Like, I agree with you. And I don't think that's what you were saying. I was just saying that instead, like, I think Ohio State's going to, like, they're already going to be very taken back, especially by, like, having a new coach. And if there's, like, this intense style, that'll be interesting to see how, like, you know what I mean? To see if she becomes, if she's like, do it like her, then that'll be a, like, touchy point, you know?
I don't think it'll be like that, but I just think having her presence is going to force everyone else to elevate their game and elevate their intensity, which is great for competition. It's great for improving your roster. And also with Allie Kennedy, when she was an assistant at UVA last year, she would jump in the practices and scrimmage with them. So she's going to do that at Ohio State, I would assume. And she's a very intense player as well. So I think that as well I think we're going to see a little bit of a different Ohio State team. Yeah. And just as far as I'm not saying they don't have intense players, but like Gabby Cleveland is one of the most intense players I've seen the past 2 years in college lacrosse. I mean, she's just intense, and I love it. So I'm excited.
And Allie also, like, I forgot about her too. She's also a very intense, like, person and player. So that is clearly speaking to the kind of atmosphere they're trying to create there, which will be interesting. I'm excited for that.
So Ohio State, the Bucks. Okay, we'll see how they fare next season. It'll be the Big Ten is tough. It's going to be tough for them. But I think give it some time. I think it'll be all right.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be a change right away, but that kind of culture is something that takes some time. But it could be cool in like three years.
So yes, moving on to our second topic. Which transfers are we most excited to see in their new home?
Okay, so first is I'll start with my second ones first. I think in general, I'm excited for the Clemson transfers because I don't like, I mean, I'm not any of them like individually, whatever. I just think that that's a team that's obviously still trying to build and still continuing to build. And they brought in 8 transfers this year, like all from different locations. Like, but it was very interesting. I thought this was funny. This is just a side note. All from different all from different places, but all on the East Coast and almost all from places that are cold. Like, which is kind of what we were talking about. We talked about earlier, like honestly, last year we talked about how the school size, the location, like it's going to be easy for them to recruit people because you're Clemson, like you wear the Clemson name across your chest. So it's going to be easy for them to recruit people. And I think they're kind of showing it here, like by bringing in 8 people from just kind of seemed like wherever they wanted to, just like picked 8 people. So I think I'm more excited just for their growth as a second-year program. Like I think, so I kind of probably use that. I didn't use that as exactly the way that it was intended, probably. But I do think that like those will obviously be a huge impact, and because they're such a young team, like I'm just excited to see what new things they can bring to the program, because like Pitt had a really good first year, right? And then kind of like petered out at like their second year. Like I don't think it was as strong as their first year was because they lost a lot of their really solid grad transfers that they brought in their first year. So I think like this is different. They're going a different route here, and they're bringing in 8 new people instead of just kind of like trying to ride that wave of the first year. She's still focusing on building a program. So I think that's the kind of the part of this that I'm excited to watch, is just kind of like, because it's still a team that's transforming, which I think is interesting and will be fun to watch instead of just kind of like riding on their first wave. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think kind of going off what you said at the start, getting a bunch of transfers the past 2 years, really, I think right now Clemson is a destination program. I think it's a program players want to be at because it is in the ACC. It is brand new. It's very exciting. I think it'll be interesting to see what Clemson does next offseason, depending on how this season goes. I think so. Obviously, they had a successful first season. They're going to have to keep winning if they want to keep getting these transfers, I would think. And I would like to say, going off their transfers, they got good transfers, but they did not get any of the top tier transfers. They didn't get Rachel Clark. They didn't get Imola Pinto. They didn't get Arden Tierney.
Yeah.
I think that says something because Boston College is just a step above them, and so is Notre Dame. But if they keep winning, they're going to keep getting transfers because it is in the South. Clemson, from all things I've heard, is a great sports town, great sports university. They have great support from the fans and from the university. So I think Clemson is a destination program right now, but to keep that going, they're going to have to keep winning.
Yeah. So, but I think building a program, like I think I'm not surprised they didn't get any of the top recruits or like top transfers, I guess, like at all, because they're not like, you're not going to be, if you're Rachel Clark transferring from Virginia, like you're going to go somewhere that's going to win a championship, and that's not necessarily Clemson at this very moment. So I feel like
that's a good point.
But the way you build a program is like the higher than middle people, but the people that are not going to go, you know what I mean? Because then you can make that into a culture, you can make that into a team, and then you start to bring your superstars in. But I feel like that's kind of what Pitt did with Paige Petty. Like they brought in their superstars, and then when they left, there was no team left. Whereas like this could be a different kind of approach to that. I think that might be more successful in the long run.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who. I haven't looked at their roster, to be quite honest, to see who's returning. So I don't know who's going to be Clemson's star this upcoming season. I'm pretty sure Gianna New graduated, I want to say. But yeah, I think Clemson, they'll be interesting, and they're definitely going to have a better second season than Pitt did. I mean, Pitt was bad.
Yeah.
So.
Right. That's kind of why I'm just excited to see if there's a step forward with this different approach, I think, which is why they're on my list. I know it wasn't exactly what you anticipated, so I'm sorry.
We'll see. We'll see how good. I think they'll have a good season. We'll see how they do.
I don't know if it'll be grand, but I think it'll be like the same. They might win one of those games that they lost like 2 really close last year. I'd give them like 1 or 2, hopefully. This is kind of not unrelated. They'll beat your Blue Devils.
What was that?
I said they'll beat your Blue Devils.
Oh, geez. Okay. We're not talking about. They're dead to me. Okay. So my first player, we just talked about Pitt. My first player actually transferred to Pitt from Youngstown State. which is a very, blue collar school to blue collar school, which I will get into. But her name is Natalie Calandra-Ryan. I've watched her play. She was a good player at Youngstown State. And so I think the biggest question for me is how will that transfer to the ACC in Pitt? I don't know. We will see. She was a 2-year starter at Youngstown State. She's entering her 3rd season. She'll be a junior. 90 points as a freshman, 68 goals, 22 assists. And that's nothing to sneeze at. I don't care where you're playing. Okay. So that's pretty good. This past season, she did miss 7 games, so her numbers were a little down. But I feel like her transfer to Pitt makes sense. When I saw her in the transfer portal, I literally thought Pitt makes sense just because of Youngstown State is in a blue-collar town, blue-collar area, and same with Pitt. They're just 2 blue-collar areas. They're not, people work hard there to make a living. That's just how they get down in those areas, okay, which is great. And so I feel like maybe that's just me thinking, maybe that's irrelevant. I don't know. But I just thought it made sense going from Youngstown, Ohio to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for her. So I think she'll be comfortable. I think she'll feel at home. And I think it's going to be good for her. If Pitt's schedule the past 2 years has shown us anything, is that she'll have a few warm-up games to start the season before they get into ACC play. And so I think that'll be interesting to see. Just because Pitt's offense, you mentioned Vanderbilt's offense. Pitt's offense, where's the number? I have it. Okay, 8.47 goals per game last year.
Yeah.
That is, and their non-conference schedule is not good, okay? So I think...
What position does she play?
What was that?
Oh, sorry, my Siri just activated. What position does she play?
I did not even hear Siri. But what position? I believe she's listed as an attacker.
Okay, that's what I was at. I just figured so she's going to be part of that offense then.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say I've seen her play every game of her career, but I feel like some situations they have people listed as attacker or midi, and they go back and forth or one or the other. But she's listed as an attacker on their roster, and I think. So I'm happy for her that she upgraded and is going to be playing in the ACC because, who doesn't want to play in the ACC? That's the best conference in lacrosse.
Right.
And so I think
that'll be cool.
It's good for her, but I think for Pitt, she really needs to pan out because, like I said, their offense was bad last year. They didn't get any other big-name transfers. I think they got a transfer goalie, I want to say. I could be wrong on that, but I believe they got one other transfer goalie. But, if you look at their roster, none of the names jump out to you other than Delana Williams, who I love. Okay, she's a beast. I love watching her. She's a Canadian. Those Canadians know how to play some lacrosse. Okay, let me tell you. But yeah, so she is great. Other than her, there's no one on their roster that has a name that really sticks out in the lacrosse community. And so I feel like Natalie Calandra-Ryan, while relatively unknown, I think she needs to pan out for them, or else it could be another long season. It's going to be a tough season either way. But she needs to be good for them to have a decent season.
Yeah. Well, and it's good that she's young, too. Like you said, this is her 3rd season. So she has, her junior and senior year left. Mm-hmm. So that's good, too. That's kind of what we were talking about earlier. She'll have a chance to build. This isn't, going to be a one-and-done kind of situation. She has a time to feel it out this season. Hopefully step into the offense and then continue that forward.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting. So one of the assistants for Pitt last year is no longer with them, and they hired 2 new assistants. So they'll have 4 assistants this year. They had 3 the first 2 years. They hired Moxley, who came over. I forget where she played college lacrosse, but she was, I want to say, either an assistant, volunteer assistant, or director of ops the past few years at Northwestern. So she's coming from a winning culture. And they also hired I can't remember her name. She played at Arizona State. Was a good attacker for them, and then was an assistant last year. I want to say Temple, maybe. I can't remember exactly, but so they're going to have 4 assistants this year.
That's so many.
I think, it's good, but it's good for them that they have the funding to do that. So props to Pitt and their athletic department. So it'll be interesting. I think we're going to see a little bit of a different Pitt this year. And when you go, I believe it was 4-9, I want to say last year. You got to make some changes. You got to do something different.
Yeah.
Because if you get complacent in the ACC, you're going to get smacked. So I'm excited to see what they do this year.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I feel like I love someone coming from a smaller school and doing good things in big places. That's a fun thing to.
Oh, you must be talking about Haley Radigan that came from
University. I was thinking of her. I couldn't remember her name, but I was thinking of her. So my second one is
Hold on,
Melissa.
time out. Did you actually give us a specific player this time, or did you give us a group of players again?
Player. And it's Melissa Sconone going from UNC to Hofstra. Because personally, like I just love things happening in the CAA because that's my conference. So the what is it? The Coastal Athletic Association now, not Colonial.
Oh, for real?
They changed
Why
it
did
to
they change their name?
I don't know. It's still the CAA, so I'm not sure. I don't know if it was Colonial. I don't know. Sometimes like maybe has bad connotation. I'm not sure. It could be. I don't know. So now it's the Coastal Athletic Association. But so first of all, it's just like personal thing. I like to see how things go there. But also just because when someone's playing at that speed and that caliber of talent, like at UNC, she's in all of this practice. She's been a steady person for them. She hasn't been like any sort of outstanding. But it's really like just practicing among those people and playing at that level and that speed, like to go to a CAA conference that's not playing at that speed as the same like level will be interesting to see how she impacts that. And I didn't put her in like as most impactful because if Hofstra has a lot of upperclassmen players right now, so her experience at being in that top program, I would have put as a positive, but I'm not sure it's a positive at this point because they have so many upperclassmen that have been on the team for so long that I'm not sure that experience will really be like welcomed in that way or be like as helpful. You know what I mean? Because they have people that know how to lead and they know how to lead that team specifically. So I'm not sure her coming in will be that helpful. The other thing is like Hofstra's a cutthroat school. Like that's a brutal cutthroat school. And these players that we're talking about just came out of the Alyssa Perella light like 2 years ago. Like they just got to come out of that situation. Where it was just like get the ball to Alyssa Perella, get the ball to Alyssa Perella.
Oh, as it should have been.
Right. Well, she was amazing. I understand. I agree. But I think all the people around her probably felt a lot like supporting players. So I'm very intrigued to see how this introduction of Melissa will end up at Hofstra because I think that it will be kind of that vibe. Like she's going to be a standout. But how do you build a team around her that doesn't feel like it's just another Alyssa Perella like out there, you know?
Well, I think if you're a player, this goes whether in athletics or just a person in life, you need to have some awareness about yourself. And they were 4-12 a season ago, 1-6 in conference, 1-8 at home. Okay, so bringing in not Alyssa Perella. I wish she was coming back for another year. That would be amazing. But bringing in Melissa Sconone, that's a huge get for the program. And experience could never be a bad thing. Okay, in my opinion. So I don't think it's a bad thing that she has experience at UNC. I think it's a great thing. She's a national champion.
No, I agree.
Mm-hmm. She's going to play with people who aren't even CAA champions. Okay.
Yeah.
So
no.
I think that it'll be interesting. I don't know what to expect. I think she'll be a starter. I think she'll have a good year, but I don't know if I expect her to put up 60 or even 50 goals. I think because at UNC, she's mostly been used on their woman up and then sprinkled in elsewhere.
Yeah.
And obviously she's got a great shot from the outside, but I feel like we really haven't seen her complete game. And obviously at UNC they have so much talent that they could maybe if that's the position where she was the best, and that's why they had her in that position. You don't need to drive; you can just sit outside and crank these things. Okay, so
I think that's what she'll be. I think that's what that's kind of the style that Hofstra plays. Like I remember when we played them my 5th year, that's what they were doing. Like they had oh god, what was her name? Katie Whelan, I think.
Oh yeah, she was 20. Good.
Yeah, and she was really good, and all she did was rip it from like the 8. Like she just she whipped those shots. So I feel like that will still kind of be her role. It'll just be her role more often than it was at UNC. But I do feel like that's kind of their style, and probably why they recruited her so heavily, or why they picked her up.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised when I saw that she was going to Hofstra because
I wonder if she's from there.
I mean, she might be from New York. That's, a very good possibility. I was just surprised being that coming from North Carolina, I just would have expected her to go to a bigger name school than Hofstra. That's the only reason I was surprised about that.
Oh, she is from New York.
She is? Okay.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and so So I just pulled up their roster. Last year, their best attacker was Nikki Manella, who was a true freshman, and she's going to be good. She's got to clean up on the turnovers, but I mean, a lot of freshmen struggle with that, especially when she had a huge workload last year. I mean,
Yeah,
no offense
that's
to
hard.
last year, but they were hurting, and so when you have to rely on a true freshman like that a lot,
Yeah,
that's
trust
not
me.
always a great
I
thing.
know. Yeah.
I mean, so I think Hofstra will be an improved team this year. Melissa Sconone is going to help them. I'm just interested to see
Yeah.
what her role is exactly.
Me too.
So that'll
I'm
be
excited
interesting.
though. I'm excited to see how she fits in. Like I think it'll be just an interesting dynamic. I'm excited to see. I mean, if she's from New York, she'll probably fit in well because I feel like they're all from New York. But
Yeah, and Shannon Smith, she's a very respected head coach, so I think she'll figure out a good role.
Yeah.
A good role for Sconone. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I think it was more of like an interested to watch than a most excited to watch, but I'm excited to watch her because I think it'll be interesting. So
fair. So I have another UNC person actually.
Oh, okay.
She went from UNC to USC. Okay. Her name is Nicole Humphrey.
Sorry.
So Nicole
Oh,
Humphrey, one of the Humphrey sisters. Obviously, they're a pretty big name right now in the lacrosse world, all playing at the Division I level this year with Chloe Humphrey coming up. She's going to be a true freshman at UNC. So Nicole Humphrey, I almost had her on my most impactful, but I will get into why I did not. What I will say about Miss Humphrey, or is it Mrs. Humphrey? I always get confused. Is it Miss or Mrs.? I never know which
Miss.
is like Miss.
Unless she's married. It's Miss if she's not married.
It's okay. That I always get confused on what, like, if a woman's married, is it Miss or Mrs.? I should probably know that by now. I'm 24 years of age, but we all have our faults. Okay. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. Nicole Humphrey, we get to see what she's made of. She's going to USC. She's going to be a starter. It's hard to get on the field at UNC. It's just hard.
Yeah.
And UNC is such a balanced team that unless you are, in recent years, Marie McCool or Jamie Ortega, it's hard to stand out as that person, as I am her, okay? Which Jamie Ortega and Marie McCool are. It's hard to stand out at UNC just because of the talent and the team style of play that Jenny Levy's teams always have. So Nicole Humphrey, let's see. Let me go to her stats. So she's played in 70 games at North Carolina in 4 years. She's only started one. So when she goes to USC, she's probably going to start every single game. And so I think it's just a different mindset being a starter versus coming off the bench, which there's nothing wrong with coming off the bench. But there's just a different mindset. So I'm excited to see her. I think the opportunity is built for her to be very successful at USC. She's going to the West Coast. She's not going to be playing as good of teams. Obviously, USC's schedule is really good non-conference, and so they'll play some teams on the East Coast, but like just the Pac-12 in general, it's a step down from the ACC. So I think she might put up 60 goals, which is more than she's scored in her first 4 years combined. I think, going back to what I said at UNC, I don't think she's had the opportunity to truly shine. She's going to get that at USC. Ella Haney on attack is coming back at USC. They have some other players coming back. So I think USC's attack is going to be very good. And adding Nicole Humphrey, who has the championship experience, who's been in all the big games you can possibly be in, she's going to be a huge get for that program. I mean, a few years ago, we saw Kerrigan Miller go from USC to UNC. But I think this is more important because Kerrigan Miller didn't have that championship experience. Humphrey does. Yeah. She's going to USC. I think USC, this is a big year for them. They're going to the Big Ten after this year. I'm not expecting them to win the national championship, but I feel like they really need to have a strong year this year to go into their Big Ten era with some confidence. Because if they struggle this year, it's not going to get any easier going into the Big Ten. And they have a very experienced roster. Kate Devers coming back. I think it's her final year. This is a big year for USC, and I think Nicole Humphrey is going to be really good for them. So what are your thoughts on her going to USC?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I think we need to figure out what's in the Humphreys genetic pool and bottle it up, because that's insane to have the kind of offspring they have.
Their mom played lacrosse somewhere. I'm not sure where. But their mom played lacrosse, I believe, is at the D1 level. And their dad played a sport at another college. It wasn't lacrosse, but he did something.
Yeah, but you know how sometimes like two athletic people have a kid and then ends up just not being athletic, like something gets crossed. It's like two negatives that just cancel each other out. I don't know, but whatever it is, it seemed to work for them. But yeah, I think that poor Chloe's probably got to be like, I just got here. Like, can you stay at UNC?
Well, so Chloe just got to UNC, and her other sister, I believe Ashley, just transferred. I don't think it's been announced, but I'm pretty sure Chloe hinted at it in one of her Instagram posts I saw. She's going from Stanford to UNC. So she does have a sister with her at
Oh, so she's
UNC,
gaining a sister. That's good.
but not all three of them are going to be there, which would have been very cool to see.
That would have been really cool. No, I agree. I think that she probably deserved to go somewhere. I was thinking that this is a total side note, by the way, but I see Katie Hogue is in the dentist school at UNC, so she's
Oh
always
yeah,
eating lunch, and I always see her eating lunch. And every time I'm like, guys, that girl's like a
goddess.
she's in the record books for like the assists, and everyone's like, oh, cool, Karson, like that's so cool. I'm like, no, but she's really good. Anyway, that's a side note.
Yeah, she's a lacrosse goddess. Okay, build her a statue with a right beside her dentist practice.
Right. And I always see her in like her scrubs, and I'm like, oh my god. I have my secret fangirl moments. But anyway, but going off of that, I thought of that because I agree with you that UNC makes it kind of hard to stand out. Like they're a very good team and they're a well-oiled machine of like pieces. And if you don't fit into Jenny Levy's like, if you're not a good piece in the puzzle, like which is how a good coach should be, like then you don't play. No matter your talent, no matter your skill level, like if you don't fit into the puzzle the way that she sees the puzzle working, then like you're not going to play. And I think, I mean, it's won them games, so I'm not bashing the coaching style at all. I just think that like that could be a Nicole Humphrey widely better for her to be at USC because she'll have an opportunity to stand out in a way that's like not really given at UNC.
Yeah, I think her and Sconone are in a similar boat. I think UNC is probably the hardest school in the country to get on the field and get playing time.
Yeah,
because they get all the best recruits. They have a deep roster. Okay, it's not like a smaller school where they only have like 30 kids. Okay, they got a bunch of kids on that team.
Yeah.
And so I think it'll be interesting. Also, if you are listening to this and wondering why Karson is whispering, okay, it's because her boyfriend is trying to sleep, evidently. Okay.
He's taking a nap.
She keeps looking over at him. She's probably thinking, oh, how cute of a sleeper is he?
No, I'm just surprised he's actually asleep. I didn't think he'd be able to fall asleep.
Is he cuddling with Big Booty Betty?
No, Betty's outside, I think. She's downstairs.
Oh. Also, Big Booty Betty is Karson's dog. I just call her Big Booty Betty. Triple B's, baby. Okay, anyways. So yeah. So for a recap, before we get to our final topic, our most impactful transfers, who did you have, Karson, your 2-3 players?
I had Emily Pinto, Rachel Clark, Emily Pinto / Rachel Clark, and then Molly Krestinski.
Awesome. And then I had Rachel Clark as well and Gabby Cleveland. And for the most excited / interested we are to see, I had Natalie Calandra-Ryan and Nicole Humphrey, and Karson had.
And I had the Clemson transfers, and then Melissa Sconone.
Awesome. Okay, moving on to topic 3. So honestly, I don't have much to say about this, but since I know Karson and I disagree, because I had to make sure we disagreed on this before we talked about it in the episode, or else there would not have been enough for a segment. Okay, but topic 3. Will the transfer portal stay busy after the COVID year goes away? And I'm going to break out something for my answer. Karson and I are going to have a new segment coming up on the podcast soon. And let me break out one of these buttons. Okay, so I'm going to ask the question again, and I'm going to give you my answer. Well, I won't give you my answer. A button will. Okay. Will the transfer portal stay busy after the COVID year goes away? No. There you have it. Okay.
Wait, you don't think it'll stay busy?
No. Oh, wait. Sorry, wrong button. Hold on.
I was like, that's my opinion.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to have to ask the question again so we get the button. Okay. Will the transfer portal stay busy after the COVID year goes away? Well, yes. There you have it, folks. Okay. My answer is yes. Karson's answer is no.
Yes, that is true. That's better. I was like, wait, that means we agree.
Yeah, I was like, no, that didn't make sense. I got too excited over the buttons. Okay, I grabbed the wrong one.
You just wanted to use the buttons.
Okay, Karson, let's let you get started on this and see what you have to say.
Okay, so inside lacrosse. So I just think that I think that there will be transfers still. Like that'll still be a thing, and I think it is. People are using it now to like as a stepping stone. So they're going to smaller schools, like, getting huge numbers, and then going to bigger schools. Like that's definitely happening. Underneath, like less than just graduate transfers. Like I think that's definitely happening, but I think it's happening at a it'll be significantly less than without the transfers, the graduate transfers, because it's way harder to leave your school halfway through your program than it is to leave your school when you've graduated, because like your credits don't transfer or they don't have the same program, or so it's a significantly more difficult task to transfer as a sophomore than it is to transfer after you've graduated. And people have been using it as an excuse now to get a secondary degree. Like people are using it to get their masters. People are using it. I'd be willing to bet the amount of student athletes with a master's drops in half after the COVID years are gone, because people have been using it as an excuse. Like now they can get masters for free, right? Like now they're doing these graduate secondary programs for free. And without it, like I just think that the ease of the fifth year will disappear. And so Inside Lacrosse like posted a final roundup like of all their transfers, everybody, and I counted them all up. And of the 120 transfers that happened this year, 53 of them were graduate students. So 45% of them were graduate student transfers. And so I don't think that it'll disappear completely, but it never was gone. I just think that these like huge impactful players that are transferring for their fifth years won't be a thing anymore. Like Rachel Clark, like she's leaving. I guess she's going to get a secondary degree at Boston College. Like
she is not a graduate yet, actually.
Oh,
she's only at UVA for 2 years.
Oh, I thought she was leaving that. Anyway, so bad point. But I do think that in general, like it'll die. I think will not stay as busy just because of like it's hard to transfer when you haven't graduated. But I think it will, like if we were at 20% usage before COVID and now we're at like 100% usage, I don't think it'll go back down to 20%. I think it'll hover at like 40-ish.
Okay, honestly, I had not thought about it like that. Okay, you have me convinced a little bit now. Okay, I'm gonna have to backtrack. I cannot come out flames ablazing. Okay, so I think that's a very good point actually, because like you said, it is a lot easier to transfer after you've graduated, especially with the transfers. And also, it's not like a lot of schools, like say college football, for example, a lot of the top schools are all public schools, whereas in lacrosse, there are a lot of schools that are ranked really high that are private schools. And so that makes it harder to transfer as well if you're going from private to public or public to private. And so I think that's a very good point on your end. So I do agree with you, actually. I think it will come down a little bit.
I've changed your mind? Yes.
Yes, you have. For the first time.
Literally.
So I think I also agree with you when you said that it will be higher than what it was pre-COVID, if you will. Because, I mean, it's just kind of the way of the world right now in college athletics. People are transferring because you don't have to sit out a year. And it used to be in a lot of sports, you had to sit out a year if you transferred, which was a big deterrent. And I remember when Charlotte North transferred a few years ago, from what I heard from a D1 head coach, is that if she transferred to an ACC school, she was going to have to sit out a year. So I was told that she probably wasn't going to transfer inside the ACC because she was going to have to sit out a year. But then she transferred to Boston College, did not have to sit out a year. I don't know all the details, but it seems like you can transfer anywhere and not sit out a year in pretty much every sport nowadays. Which
I wonder how they're doing that. Like, did that rule just go away?
I'm not sure. I know it used to be. I feel like it used to be most prevalent in football and basketball, I want to say. In some of the other sports, you could play right away. But I don't know. I feel like that rule just kind of quietly disappeared. I don't really know what happened.
I know there's like you can claim like a mental health thing, and they won't make you sit out a year if you claim you're switching because of mental health. But I don't know. Like, there's no way all these people are using that loophole. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, it's definitely, without having to sit out a year, you can go whenever you want. I mean, going back to Nicole Humphrey, what I found very interesting about her that I forgot to mention is she announced that her and USC jointly announced that she was going there on June 1st. I mean, that's like the season ended 2 or 3 days prior, and she was already gone. So it's
she'd already been talking about it. That's crazy.
So that was kind of odd. I forgot to mention that. But I think honestly I agree with everything you said. I think it's Fist pump.
Fist pump.
Okay. I think, I don't want to repeat it because I don't need to do that. But I agree. I do think that, or I think that it might come and go in waves. I think it'll be higher than it was pre-COVID. But the reason I say it might come and go in waves, there might be years where it's really high, is because this past season, when you had a player like Haley Radigan go from Mercer to Northwestern and win a national championship, that was last offseason. And then this offseason, you had two Mercer players, one transfer to Virginia Tech, one transfer to Arizona State. If Haley Radigan did not have the success she had at Northwestern, I don't think those two players would have transferred. And so I think that if players, and like Molly Law Liberty, for example, if she transferred and had a lot of success, then another Tufts goalie transferred to Duke. And so I think when players transfer and have a lot of success, I think that will lend to more transfers that immediate offseason. But I think if we will see seasons when players transfer, don't have the same amount of success, and I think that will hurt it the next offseason, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I also think it'll matter, like, if teams are building. Like, right now, Clemson, of the 120 I counted, Clemson has 8 of them. Like, Ryder has 8 of them. Like, it'll also depend on, like, what the new coaching, like, what's happening there. But that was all kind of normal before. Like, I think this huge influx into the portal came with that 5th year. Because I would have never thought of leaving Drexel ever. And then when I 5th year, like when Jill quit my 5th year, I was like, this could be kind of interesting. But like, I never would have thought that.
You were like, before. Mercer University, here I come.
Yeah, no. But like, for half a second, you're like, oh, I could go wherever I wanted, and that's like kind of a cool thing to have. So I think that feeling of like freedom, and especially because you pick a school at 17 years old, like 16 years old, you pick a school. So it's like by the time you get to 21, you want different things in life. You want to be different places. So I feel like people are using it as an excuse to try something new or go somewhere new. They won't do that anymore just to transfer out of a 4-year program,
For sure. I think another thing to keep in mind is how the coaches view the transfer portal. I feel like as the years have gone on, especially the past few years, more and more coaches have become open to the transfer portal. I mean, we had Coach Kimmel on last year or before the season, and she was very anti-transfer portal. And then this offseason, Duke, I think they got 7 or 8 players in the portal. It was a lot, maybe 6. I mean, they got a lot of players in the portal.
That's
so
funny.
I think it's circumstantial. How is your season going into the offseason?
Yeah.
Did you have a bad experience with a previous transfer? I think it's going to be like a yearly thing. Certain programs might have more success with it than others, like Boston College. They have a strong track record, and they might be like, oh, every year, let's go get a player or 2 from the portal and boost our roster. And they might have success.
Might as well.
But not every team is going to have success in the portal. It's just not going to work out. So
I agree.
I honestly, I thought that was going to be a lot more of a beefy conversation, but we agreed. So props to Karson and Harris. Okay.
I convinced you. Beautiful.
Hold on, I have another. Is Karson the best podcast co-host?
Give me a Y, give me a T, give me an
That's a funny one. I like that answer. I like that. Yes.
Awesome. So yes, we will. I have been slacking on that, but we will have a new podcast segment with those buttons coming up soon. Any final thoughts, Karson? As let's see, we are recording this on August 27th. It will come out on August 29th. So we will, let's see, what's that? September, October, November, December. 4 months of fall ball, basically, or not 4 full months, but we're entering fall ball. And then next thing you know, it'll be January and February, and the season's back here. Any thoughts?
Yay. No, nothing too groundbreaking. I'm excited for this to keep. I'm excited. I feel like we've had some switch ups. I'm hoping that there's more teams break. I think like the trend last year was that we saw some teams breaking into the top 5 that we weren't used to before. And I'm hoping that trend continues. So I'll cross our fingers that that's still kind of what seems to be going on. With the BC transfers, we might have lost that. But we'll see.
We will see. And also, last thing for me, so we talked about this whole episode about players transferring. I would also like to give a shout out to all the players that did not transfer, that could have. Because if we had all these great players leaving the smaller schools, it would greatly hurt the product of women's lacrosse. Okay, so
I agree.
For example, a player that hits home close to Karson, Corinne Bednarik. Thank goodness she did not transfer from Drexel, because she could have transferred and started in the ACC. So I'm very happy. I think the transfers, they make things interesting, give us something to talk about, but I'm glad not everyone uses the transfer portal. Because I love watching these big time players at small time schools. So
Yeah,
I'm not
me
saying
too. No, I
Drexel is a small
agree.
time school, but they're not an ACC.
Yeah,
big-time
no,
school.
I agree. I know what you mean. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's important as well. And I'm excited. I think Corinne's in a 5-year program, which would make sense. She's got another
Nice.
year.
Nice. So that is a wrap on episode 27. We're gonna close it out now because Karson has to go cuddle with her sleeping boyfriend. Okay.
Who?
You don't like to
Oh.
cuddle, Karson?
I said I don't like to talk about it on a podcast.
Oh, okay. Well, there you learned something new about Karson. Okay, I will not bring it up. Listen, I probably shouldn't talk about anything with Karson because I did comment on her Instagram post recently, and she deleted my comment. What in the world? Awesome. That is the wrap on episode 27.